See, I told you we would be back talking about Riot's MMO. Though I thought it would be under different circumstances. Well, if there is something Riot is known for, it is finding ways of getting money and then burning that money in an attempt to evolve gaming. They were arguably the first to break the video game movie curse with Arcane. They pushed the FPS genre onto a whole new level of fandom with Valorant, which finally forced Valve to do something, and lately they are trying to do something in the fighting game genre with simpler controls, while most of their competition is scaring the casual player base away with complex combos. So one could argue, at least Riot is not afraid of taking risks and bringing in results after milking their whales. And right now, one of the most hyped games that should theoretically come out of these investments is the Runeterra MMO. A project that's been worked on for a very long time now and which went through a lot of changes. At least, that's what was teased on Twitter. And the good news is that as far as we know, the MMO is still alive. There are rioters still holding their positions working on the MMO. Even though the latest piece of news was that the game took a step back, so Riot could reassess the MMO genre as a whole to make sure they can actually evolve what is currently available on the MMO market. To some, this would mean that there would be no more Riot MMO news for a while. Or at least, that is, if the definition of MMOs didn't evolve. And if Riot weren't a freak that is not afraid of prototyping an endless sea of games. That's right, even though Riot already has a good arsenal of games under their belt. As they confirmed during the time all the layoffs happened, they are still working on more games in the background, some of which are even single-player games. One such game that seemed to always go towards the single-player area with optional co-op was Project F, a top-down hack-and-slash adventure game that we have never seen anything about outside of the 10th anniversary video. But we still know it exists and there are some job listings hinting at it. Well, the interesting thing is that this entire time, by which I mean well over a year now, these job listings have also been looking for devs in a very specific field. They've been looking for devs with the technical knowledge around FPS games to work on a game that is not Valorant, mind you. This is a different FPS game that Riot is working on, which also has RPG elements, narrative, and MMO-like structure. And if all of these are correct, then this means that Riot is working on another MMO. And if you think about it, it is actually genius. Now first, let's dive into how we got to this conclusion. It all actually started a year ago. Back then, there was a job listing on Riot's official website, and there they were looking for game designer on progression and meta systems for unpublished R&D product. The catch is, originally in this listing, instead of R&D, they called this game Project T. This is important because, as we know, all of Riot's games have their project name. And Project T is an entirely new name, meaning it should be different from the Riot MMO we knew until now. Which, by the way, now we are gonna call it the Runeterra MMO, just to distinguish these. And later, when Riot realized this oopsie, they went back, they removed the mention of Project T, which pretty much confirmed, yep, they are working on a new game. But what they were asking for is also interesting. First, we got a bunch of confirmations that this was indeed a live service game. They are asking for long-term meta progressions, as well as progressions across multiple seasons, but also currencies and deeper economy, which would hint more towards an MMO setting. And then it dove into requirements which revealed a lot more. Besides the classics such as requiring 8 billion years of practice as a game designer, they also ask you that you already shipped at least one AAA game. Let me tell you, in 2024, that does not mean a lot. Or you can also ship a lifestyle online game with long-form progression. If you're not sure what a lifestyle game is, it is what you would consider a main game. Like, hey, what's your main game? Oh, it's League of Legends. Or WoW. Or Fortnite. It is basically a massive live service game. Then they ask for experience on in-game economy, a deep familiarity with long-term progressions, for example, MMO, FPS, premium mobile competitive multiplayer ARPG. This is where the curiosity was piqued because FPS was kinda randomly mentioned here. There aren't that many FPS games with a long-term progression system. Maybe besides Battle Royales or even the old Call of Duty games. But later they once again repeat that they have a desire that you have an insight into MMOs and FPS games. But then, after this, there was another job listing. This one came asking for a concept artist for weapons, for an R&D project. Now again, because this is R&D, it is not Valorant. Otherwise, they would have just stated so. And the reason why I'm mentioning this here is because they are looking for a concept artist for 3D weapons in a stylized art style. And the requirement is to have experience with first or third person camera orientation in-game. Once again, hinting that we are dealing with an FPS game. As a fun fact, it also seems to be Unreal Engine 5. But lastly, there is also one more job listing that is up right now. They are looking for a game designer on weapons on an unpublished R&D game. And here they straight up confirm it is for a first-person combat game, which is not Valorant, because it is an R&D game. Now the reason why this is likely linked to Project T is because here they are specifically asking for FPS specialization, and the game is also in Unreal Engine. Things simply start to overlap, which means it is not confirmed, but there is an extremely big chance that Riot might be working on an MMO FPS. And they have been for more than a year now. So why am I making a video on it now? Because someone made a totally random tweet and it might be made up, so I might as well. Anyway, as I mentioned, there is a good reason why this might be a genius move. Right now, there is a massive gap in the MMO FPS game genre. The only game that is really trying to hold the line is Destiny 2. But it is failing, and there is a massive reason why, and we will get into that in just a moment. Also, I've heard that literally today Bungie had massive layoffs and things are not looking great. Anyway, the main point is that if Riot manages to put their foot in the door, they could guarantee a success if they play their hands right. And that's because they have one ginormous advantage. You see, the Runeterra MMO has always been seen as a guaranteed hit by many. Not because Riot would be known for their high-quality games. I mean, to be fair, their games are high quality with a lot of polish, but there is still the League of Legends spaghetti. But it's more because the Runeterra MMO already has its audience. Should they release that MMO, they don't have to look for the players. The players that know their universe are just sitting there, just waiting for them to drop it. And that's because League's universe is already well established. I mean, I should know that. This channel was always dedicated to the lore of League of Legends. And I might have made more than 5 videos talking about the world of the MMO that is already set up. But logically, this would mean that should Riot try to spin up a different MMO, one that is not part of the Runeterra IP, unless they really focus on the Guns of Piltover or something, that would mean their other MMO wouldn't have this advantage. They would have to build up a separate universe. And all things considered, they would have to earn their audience again. Right? Wrong! Big bad wrong! Let's refer to Google Trends for a moment. This tool is amazing at comparing what people are interested in around the world. And we can use this tool to have a look at League of Legends, the most talked about Riot game, which would also suggest that this is their biggest IP. However, let's compare it to Valorant. A game that took the FPS genre by storm and which managed to quickly dominate it. And as to how much it dominates? Well, these days, Valorant actually managed to match the size of League of Legends. And it even overtook it in some countries. Meaning that the hype behind Valorant is just as big as the hype behind League. Which brings up a really interesting point. What if Riot is taking this MMO FPS and putting it into the Valorant universe? Shouldn't that have just as a massive result as the Runeterra MMO? Well, yes, it should, under one condition. The condition that A, the audience is already familiar with the setting, which it is because Valorant is one of the top played games in the world right now, and B, the universe is already set up. Which, let me tell you, oh boy is it set up. It is to such a degree I can actually make a video on the classes of this MMO right now. Yes, we can make a full circle out of this if you want. We have all the massive lore around Radianite and how it gave people superpowers and empowered their tech. And you know what that smells to me? That smells like a really cool setup for possible classes. I mean, Destiny only has 3 main classes. The Hunter, which is your classic sharpshooter, the Warlock, which is using spells, and the Titan, which is your classic Juggernaut. In Valorant you have the more tech-oriented characters who got their superpowers from the apocalyptic events, or even a playable machine. They even have their own classes like the Initiator, the Controller, the Duelist, and even the classic Support. As I said, I am ready to go wild and explain how Valorant's lore can support all of this. Speaking of which, this is something that needs to be said. Every year when Valorant releases a new episode, they release a cinematic which gives us a new piece of a story. And every year those cinematics go wild, gaining millions of views in mere days after release. It is obvious people love these characters and they love this universe. And so, just like it is with the Runeterra MMO, Riot is sitting on golden eggs here. Which brings me to one last thing. As always, all of this relies on one thing that is rooted around every game. This game is no exception, and so I have to repeat that gameplay is king. Which is why there is so much potential, because the gameplay of the competitors is ass. As I said, perhaps the biggest competitor is Destiny here. There were also others who tried to do something in this genre, like Anthem, which is as much as I would like to say about that game, with Destiny sticking around because the gameplay is fun. The gunplay is really good. And that's pretty much what is carrying all of this. I mean, it always called itself an MMO because it does have MMO elements. Getting loot is kinda fun. Doing the dungeons is kinda fun. But there is one massive reason why I dropped this game very quickly after trying it. When Destiny 2 originally launched, I got all the way to the end game. I got my gear pretty high up by doing dailies and all the high-end missions. But then came the obstacle. Destiny 2 has really cool raids. They are amazing experiences that look fantastic, which is something I have never done. Even though I wanted to try a Destiny raid multiple times in the past. And you know why that is? It's because in order to get into a raid, you have to put a group together in a game without group finder, without public invites, and without proper chat support. You call yourself an MMO, but if you want to do the MMO endgame things, you have to quit the game, go on Discord or a third-party website, find people there, add their tags, invite them into a group, and then you hop into the raid? I honestly don't know if they fixed this since the release. But this was the point I immediately quit the game. I'm not asking for a raid finder, God forbid that. I can sit in Orgrimmar looking for a group all day, but don't make me do that on a third-party website where I have to post my game tag publicly. So, that's why I quit. And you know why I'm not coming back? I don't even know which expansion to buy to play the game. But yeah, that's pretty much where we are with Project T at this time. Keep in mind that all of these are just theories and none of this was confirmed. But it really seems like in the background Riot is dabbling in some very specific game genres around MMOs and FPS games. And yes, right now there is a massive window open there. And if there is something Riot is known for, it is jumping through those windows. No matter the genre, no matter the scale. And since we are talking about a potential MMO here, I'm afraid I'm gonna make more videos on this.